Well, thank you. I am so glad to be here. I want you to turn to the couple on your right. Now, you who are sitting next to the wall, do the best you can. I want you to turn to the couple sitting on your right and say to them, I'm glad you're here this weekend. You right here, you got to point across to these people over here. You got to point to these people. All right, I want you to turn to the couple on your left. Turn to the couple on your left. Say to them, you're looking good tonight. You're looking good. You are looking good tonight. Yeah. Now, I want you to gently pat the couple in front of you on the back. Pat them on the back and say, I wish I was wearing your outfit. I wish. You'd look so good in that outfit. You'd look so good in that outfit. Now turn around to the couple behind you. Turn around to the couple behind you. Say to them, you look just like my parents. You look just like my parents. Good old mom and dad. You look just like them, mom and dad. Well, God does give me the privilege of traveling all over, everywhere, and speaking. I still speak to high school and middle school because the years have not matured me at all. But I also love the opportunity just to meet with couples. Love the opportunity just to talk about marriages. I have a wonderful family. Tomorrow I'll show you a picture and talk a little bit about them. But tonight we're going to kick it off, and I want you to know that during the sessions, I'm going to have you turn to your spouse, and I'm going to have you answer some questions and just talk together a little bit. So the first question tonight I want you two to talk about is, what are the 4 major issues that most marriages have to deal with? 4 major issues. See how many of these you can get right. Talk with a couple next to you. Go. All right, here we go. And if you get any of these right, just clap for yourself. Just clap for yourself. Not yet. If you get any right, clap for yourself, okay? All right, and these are not in order. Number 1, communication. Communication, excellent job. Number 2, effectively resolving conflict. Effectively resolving conflict. Wow, nobody. It's not an issue for anybody. Turn to the couple next to you and say, we never argue. We never argue. Never. Number 3 is sexual intimacy. Thank you. And number 4, finances. Finances. This weekend, we're going to talk about communication. We're going to talk about effectively resolving conflict. We're going to talk about sexual intimacy, and we will not talk a lick about finances because I know nothing about finances. My wife handles the finances in our house. If I did it, it'd be a disaster. I'd be like, we can't be out of money. I've still got checks. So Bonnie takes care of all those areas. I want to know as we move into this weekend, a lot of stuff we're dealing with, a lot of things going on around the world, all kinds of pressure, all kinds of stress. But in your relationship with one another, husband and wife, I want to know what picture you best identify with. Check the screen. Now, here you have a bunch of different pictures. And I want you to look at the pictures, and I want you to pick the one picture that best describes your relationship or how you're feeling about your marriage, not about family. Kids bring a whole different dynamic into this. This is just husband and wife. How are you feeling, husband and wife? And then I want you to turn to one another, and I want you to tell the person which picture it is. And for crying out loud, if your spouse tells you a picture, don't be like, oh, that's not true. No, that can't be true. No. Listen, understand them, hear what they're saying. Which picture do you most identify? Talk with one another. Go. And tell them why you picked this picture. Now, as you look at these pictures, I want to let you know, number one, these pictures really are seasonal. Meaning, the picture you pick now, you may not pick it a year from now. It may be something totally different. So whatever picture you chose, you're not stuck there. That's just how you're feeling right now. Now, do not hate me, but when I look up here, the picture I most relate to right now is the top left-hand corner. But it hasn't always been like that. Bonnie and I would tell you, as we went through all our years of marriage, turn to your spouse right now and guess, how many years have I been married? Go. And if you get this right, your spouse will buy you an ice cream. All right, Bonnie and I have been married for 45 years. 45 years. Yes. Any woman who can put up with me for 45 years needs a standing ovation. But Bonnie and I would say to you, we've been in all those pictures. We could identify all of those at one time or another through our marriage. And the great news that I will remind you of as we go through this weekend is your yesterdays do not determine your tomorrows. You can be different because Jesus will give you the power to be different. And this weekend is just a little bit of a refresher. This weekend is all about you gaining some encouragement and you gaining some practical information that you can begin to apply to your life. Let me say that again, to your life. This weekend, I don't want you focused on your spouse. I don't want you sitting there doing this. Listen. Listen. That's you. It's you. Listen. Excuse me. That's you. That's you. Don't do that. Just focus on you. And here's the question. What's the next step you need to take? In communication, what's the next step you need to take? With effectively resolving conflict, next step. Sexual intimacy, next step. What do you need to do as you continue to grow and develop? So tonight, let's look at communication. Good communication. And I want to start out with a quote by Robert Dodds. It says, "The goal of marriage is not to think alike, but to think together, to work together, to solve together, to follow Jesus together, to raise our children together, to love one another together. That's what we want to do. See, a key to being friends is communication. Communication is the lifeblood of every relationship, and a lack of communication is a lack of love, because you naturally communicate with someone you love. So you need to be talking to one another on a regular basis beyond just the basics. How you doing? Fine. How you doing? Fine. Hey, some weather we're having, huh? Yeah, some weather. Hey, how about them Packers? Yeah, whatever. It's got to go beyond that. You're married to one another. There needs to be depth in your communication. Do you know what communication calls you to do? Communication calls you to be vulnerable. Look, there are very few people who know the good, bad, and the ugly about Greg Speck. And I'm sad to say, there's a lot of bad, there's a lot of ugly. But not a lot of people know that, but there's one person who knows it, and that's Bonnie. And as a married couple, you need to be vulnerable with one another. You need to be willing to lift out your hearts to one another. But keep this in mind. I can only lift out my heart to you if I feel like I can trust you. Because in the past, maybe, I don't know, in the past, maybe your spouse has reached out their heart to you and has shared, this is how I feel, and your response was, I don't care. I don't care. How many times are you going to reach your heart out to somebody who slaps it away and says, I don't care? You're not going to do that a lot. But this weekend, I want you to go deeper in your communication as you are open with one another. And look what Ephesians says about communication. And this is certainly applicable to our marriages. Ephesians 4:29. Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their need, that it may benefit those who listen. Let me just put it in a marriage conference speak. Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building your spouse up according to their needs, that it may benefit your spouse as they listen. What do you need this weekend from your spouse? I want you to start, women. I want you to turn to your husband and quietly, don't shout this out. Quietly, I want you to share with them what's one thing you need from them this weekend. What's one thing you would like to see happen? One thing you need from them this weekend? Women, tell this man. Ready, go. Now, men, be willing to do that. Be willing to do that. Men, what is one need you have from your wife this weekend? Whisper it to her. Ready? Go. Now look to meet those needs. And do you know when you can start? You can start tonight. You can start tonight in seeking to meet those needs. And by the way, what is unwholesome talk? I want you to write down Colossians chapter 3, verses 8 and beyond. And I want to know as I read through this, do you struggle with any of these? But now you must rid yourself of all such things as these: anger, rage, that's anger out of control, malice, planning to do harm to your spouse, slander, that's gossip, filthy language from your lips, and do not lie. I understand in the workplace, you may hear the F-bomb all the time, but that doesn't mean that ought to come out of your mouth. That doesn't mean it ought to be a part of your vocabulary. See, we don't have to be weird as Christians, but there needs to be a distinction in our lives, in the way we act and react, and the way we treat people, the way we respond to them, the way we speak to them. And if we are seeking to honor Jesus Christ, then he will choose to use us to bring light into the darkness. Anger, rage, malice, slander, filthy language, lying. Do you have one of those areas that you struggle in? Turn to your spouse and tell them. They know it anyway, but just tell them anyway. What's an area you struggle in those? So let's choose to get rid of those this weekend. You know what? Let's not get angry this weekend. We'll talk about that tomorrow morning, but let's not be easily offended this weekend. Let's not let little things throw us off. Let's focus on our spouse and make this a wonderful weekend to remember by honoring God, by speaking life into our spouse, and by ridding ourselves of those things that should not be a part of our lives at all. Now, what can we do to be better communicators? I just want to suggest 3 things. What can we do? Number 1 is take time. Take time for one another. Can I commend you right now that you are taking time to be here at this marriage conference? That is so good. Turn to your spouse right now and say to them, I am proud of you. I am proud of you. Thank you for taking time. Thank you for being willing to do this. And let's be honest, I understand some of you are excited to be here. Others of you would prefer having a root canal to being here, but you're here. So thank you for showing up and being here and taking time for your relationship. That is so important. Tomorrow, you're going to have a variety of things you can do. I'd like you to do things together. This weekend, I'd like you to have shared experiences. Now, did you come with other couples? Maybe. I do not want all the men running off, throwing hatchets at the women who are running. No, I don't want the men running off throwing hatchets. I don't want the women running off doing whatever you want to do. I want you doing things together as couples. Now, can you be together with several couples? Sure, absolutely. You can hang out as couples, but I want to make sure it's you two shared experiences this weekend. All right? So women, turn to this man and tell them what's one thing you would like to do this weekend together. And by the way, it can be anything. You could say, women, I want to go do a craft. And men, you be willing to do that. And maybe the men will say, well, I'd just like to go get ice cream with you. And women, please don't say, Do you know how many calories there are in ice cream? Do you understand you are lactose intolerant? Do you? Don't do that. Don't do that. So women, what's one thing you would like to do with your husband tomorrow? Tell him. Go. Husband, what's one thing you'd like to do with your wife tomorrow? Tell him. Now, whatever it is, just do it and have fun. Have a good attitude about doing it. Oh, I don't like to do crafts. Well, you know what? Come on. Put on your big boy pants and go do a craft. Go do a craft and be positive about the whole experience. And you know what you may discover? You may discover you will enjoy that whole experience that you would share together. And then when you go home, I want you to spend time together. Look, Bonnie and I, from the time we were first married through all 4 of our children, I would try to take my wife out on a date once a week. Once a week, just Bonnie and I. Now, I have men who come up to me and say, well, we can't afford that. I don't know how much stuff costs in Chicago, but it's expensive in Wisconsin and Minnesota. I tell you what, we can't afford that. Well, here's what you do. You go to a fast food restaurant and you each get a cup of water and you sit in the back booth. It doesn't have to cost anything. The whole idea is let's just get away from the tyranny of the urgent and let's just sit down and spend time together, just the 2 of us. Just the 2 of us. Then men say to me, well, we can't afford babysitting. What are we supposed to do about that? Well, here's what you do. You make a deal with another couple at your church. And you say to them, look, once a week, we'll watch your child for free. If once a week, you'll watch our 8 children. And that's a good deal for you. So I want you to make each other a priority. You say, well, Greg, different things and special needs kids and stuff, and we just can't do that. We can't get away like that once a week, all right? Well, then get away as often as you think you can, but then set aside special time in the evening. I just feel like so often we are families divided living in the same house. Take 2 kayaks and take them out into the middle of the lake. I don't even know what direction the lake is. Is it that direction? Oh, it's that way? Yeah, I knew that. So go out into the lake. Go to the middle of the lake, 2 kayaks, right next to each other. Then stop rowing and just sit there. Do you know what's going to happen? The kayaks are going to slowly drift apart. I'm here to tell you in marriage, you don't naturally come together. You don't naturally become one. You naturally drift apart. You've got a purpose to be one. You've got to purpose to come together as husband and wife and build this relationship. Look, my best friend is Bonnie. But that didn't happen magically. It's been 45 years. But I can come home from Camp Forest Springs and I can walk in the door and I can say, honey, they hated me at Camp Forest Springs. They came up to me and said, Greg, we've heard bad speakers, but you are number 1. And do you know what my wife would say to me? She would say to me, that's okay, I love you. How great is that? How awesome is that? That I have a friend there for life. Today in the world, relationships are a mile wide and an inch deep. They never last. And the first storm that comes up, because they don't have a firm foundation, the relationship goes down. You got to put your roots deep. You got to cement your relationship. And you do that by spending time together, sharing with one another, building each other up, speaking life into one another. Men, I want you to turn to this woman right now, and I want you to tell her 3 things you love about her that has nothing to do with the physical. Ready, go. Now, women, turn to this man, tell him 3 things you love about him that has everything to do with the physical. All right, just kidding. Turn to them and tell them 3 things you love about them that has nothing to do with the physical. Go. Okay, number 1 is take time. Focus in on each other. This weekend is all about you two. Shared experiences, being together, taking time for one another. Second area, being better communicators, is seek understanding. Understand. Here's what I hear from couples when I sit down and talk with them. And by the way, tomorrow I'll have a sheet and you can sign up if you would like to talk with me. I am here, available to you, free. I'll just sit in the coffee shop and you can just come by and we'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. And sometimes it's nice to have somebody to bounce some thoughts off of that you don't have to see all the time. And that would be me. So if I can be an encouragement to you, I'd be happy to do that. But here's what I hear from spouses. They say this: I don't feel like my husband really understands me. I don't feel like my wife really understands me. I don't really feel like they take the time to understand me. And I want to tell you that's very important. You know why? Women, your husband becomes vulnerable to any woman that will seek to understand him. If there's a woman in the office that seeks to understand him, he becomes vulnerable to that woman. Men, your wife becomes vulnerable to any man that will seek to understand her. If there's a man at church or a man at work that will seek to understand her, she becomes vulnerable to that man. Who ought to be the number 1 person seeking to understand our spouse? It needs to be us. We need to do that. And what can we do to be better at understanding? Well, let me suggest 2 things. A, speak their language. Speak their language. Do you realize that in your house you have 2 types of communicators? You have cognitive communicators, number one. Cognitive communicators, they want to deal with the facts. What's the time? What's the temperature? What's the score? How much does it cost? Don't tell me a story. I don't need a story. Just get to the point. What's the point? Cognitive communicators. Then you have emotional communicators. And emotional communicators, they want to deal with feelings. How do you feel? How do I feel? How do we feel? Now, I don't know why this is, but opposites tend to attract one another. And you have a cognitive communicator who marries an emotional communicator, and you drive each other insane. I don't know why that is. I suppose if two emotional communicators got married, you wouldn't get anything done. Are you okay? Well, I'm okay. How come we're crying? I don't know. Just hold me. Hold me. And if it was two cognitive communicators, the relationship would be so cold. So, shall we kiss now? No. 5 minutes, see you then. Okay? So here you have these two opposites. And here's what it feels like in your house. Meow. Wow. It feels like we're always missing each other. Always missing each other. First of all, let me tell you, if you're a cognitive communicator, that's a good thing. If you're an emotional communicator, that's a good thing. Don't try to change your spouse and mold them into your image. Allow them to be the person God has made and let Him mold them into His image. You say to me, well, wait a second. So if cognitive is good and emotional is good, but we're missing each other, then I don't get it. What's the answer? Here's the answer. You've got to speak their language. Starting now, and I'm telling you, if you will do this, this will make such a huge change in your relationship for the good. Starting now, always respond to emotion with emotion and fact with fact. Always respond to emotion with emotion and fact with fact. Now, emotion meaning intensity? No. Emotion meaning empathy and understanding. Okay? So your wife comes home and she says to you, this has been the worst day of my life, and everything went wrong in the car, and the washing machine and the kids have been terrible, and all. This day has been the worst day of my life. And you look at her and you say, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Well, you know what? That's a wonderful biblical truth, but you've just responded to emotion with fact. And you want to know the first thing your wife will think? The first thing your wife will think is this: you don't really understand me. You don't really get me at all. So when your wife comes home and says, it's been the worst day and everything's gone wrong, it's been terrible, you need to stand up. You need to say, oh, my little potato pancake. You need to go over to her. You need to give her a hug. You need to say, honey, that must have been so hard. That must have been so frustrating. And then, men, you utter the 3 magic words. Do you know the 3 magic words, man? Do you know this? Because this will win you big points. You give her a hug. You say, that must have been so hard. I'm so sorry, honey. And then you utter those 3 magic words. Tell me more. Tell me more. I shared that at a conference, and there was a guy all the way in the back who went, are you kidding me? No, I'm not kidding. You are seeking to understand her. Respond to emotion with emotion. Now, I use the woman as the example of the emotional communicator. I want you to know when it comes to Bonnie and I, Bonnie is the cognitive communicator. I'm the emotional communicator. So it can go either way. It can go either way, men or women. So you're going to respond to emotion with emotion. And you're going to build understanding because you're speaking their language. In the same way, now we're talking cognitively. And the man says, look, we cannot afford $12,000 for living room furniture. And women, you say, you don't love me anymore. The man's like, what? What does love have anything to do with this? And he's right. We're not talking about emotions. We're not talking about feelings of love. We're talking about how much does something cost. We're talking cognitively. And you need to respond to fact with fact. Here's another little heads up. If your spouse wants you to fix it, they will ask you to fix it. So when you share with your spouse, you know what, this has been awful and this just didn't go right. And you're like, well, if you would just do A, B, C, and it'd all work out. Don't do that. Don't do that. You're responding to emotion with fact. Don't do it. If your spouse wants you to fix it, they'll ask you to fix it. Turn to your spouse right now. Look them in the eye and say to them, if I want you to fix it, I'll ask you to fix it. Go. All right, good job. Good job. So letter A, speak their language. Letter B, your words make it hard or easy to receive what you're trying to say. Why would you make it hard for your spouse to receive the message? That's just counterproductive for you. You know that little voice you can use? Wow. You know that little thing you can say that just kind of sets your spouse off? You know that? Don't do that. Don't do that. You want to make it easy for them to receive the message. For example, what's easier for me to receive? You're never home. Or, I miss you. What's easier for me to receive? You're a lousy driver. Or, when I ride with you, it makes me glad I know Jesus. So how you say something makes it easy to receive or makes it hard. Make it easy. People say this, listen to what I'm saying, not how I'm saying it. No, you can't do that. They all go together. Let me tell you, every time you communicate a message, it's made up of 3 parts. 7% of the message are the words. Hello, how are you? Nice to see you. 38% of the message is your voice inflection. It's your volume. It's how you say it. And 55% of every message is it's nonverbal. It's how you stand. It's your facial expression. It's what you do with your hands. People say to me, what? You're saying to me that 93% is other than words? 7% is words and 93% is other? I don't believe that. All right. Allow me to say the same thing to you 3 times, and you tell me if you notice a difference. Sir, in the, I don't know what color that is. Is that kind of a goldish, brownish? All right. You look tan. That's good. Can I use you in this illustration? You don't have to get up. You don't have to move. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to do anything. All you have to do is sit there. All right. And by the way, I never pick on people in the front row. So that keep that in mind for future sessions. You are safe in the front row. I'm going to say the same thing to you 3 times. You tell me if you notice a difference. Hey, I'm not upset. Hey, I'm not upset. I'm not upset. I said the same thing to you 3 times. You better have gotten 3 different messages or you're in big trouble. It's important in your home that you stop sending contradictory messages. How many times does this happen? One of you comes home, take their stuff, sit at the dinner table. Somebody pass them the mashed potatoes. They pass it on. And you look at them and you say, honey, what's wrong? And what's their answer? Nothing. That's a contradictory message. 7% of the message says nothing's wrong. 93% of the message says, I'm really upset. When you walk around the house and your husband follows you and goes, what's wrong? And you're like, nothing. Nothing. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. It's okay, all right? It's good. Nothing's wrong. It's fine. 7% says it's fine. 93% says, I'm really upset. You've got to stop sending contradictory messages because it causes confusion in your house. I want you to turn to your spouse right now and identify, are you more the emotional communicator or the cognitive? And I'm talking about between the 2 of you, not in the office, between the 2 of you. Go. Now, starting now, respond to emotion with emotion and fact with fact. And turn to your spouse and say this: if I forget to respond properly, you can remind me. Yes. Tell that person, tell that woman right now. All All right, number one, we're going to take time. Number two, we're going to seek understanding. And number three, we're going to listen. Listen. What does James 1:19 say? Be slow to speak, be slow to get angry, be quick to listen. Listen to the other person. And look, your goal in listening is not, do I agree with you or disagree with you? And in the past, that has been your goal. So as soon as they say something that you don't agree with, boom, you're going to cut them right off. That's not your goal. Your goal is not, do I agree with this? Do I disagree with this? Your goal is, you're seeking to understand them. You're seeking to see things from their perspective and be a good listener. It means you give focused attention. I understand you're multitaskers, but just don't. Just put down the iPad, put down the book, put down the paper, take out the earbuds, shut off the football. Well, let's not get ridiculous. But the whole idea is, let's give focused attention. They're the priority. Other than your relationship with Jesus Christ, that would be number one. Number two is your spouse. You treat them as though they are that kind of priority in your life. You listen to them and don't interrupt them. Do you have a hard time speaking to one another without interrupting each other? If you do, here's a little thing that even Bonnie and I have done in the past. And that is, can I walk out here without feedback? Thank you. I just pick on this row. It's a communication pen. So if you are holding that pen, you are now talking, and Kayla, you are listening. And then when you're done, you hand her the pen. And then you're speaking, and Brandon, you're listening. And whoever holds that pen is the one who's communicating. Some of you just need that little tip. Some of you need that, just a way in which you don't interrupt one another. You don't jump on one another. However, if you're holding the pen, you can't hold it for 45 minutes. Okay, there's got to be give and take in the relationship. There's got to be give and take in talking to one another. And talk in such a way and listen for opportunities to encourage and build them up. A phrase I give to parents in working with teenagers, but this is so applicable to husband and wife, and that is this: catch them being good. Listen well enough to catch them when they're doing well. When you're listening to your spouse, one of the things you should be thinking is, what's something I can compliment them on as you're listening to them sharing this story? And to say, wow, yeah, you put the cart in the ditch, but you missed the deer. That was so good. That was so good. Look for a chance to compliment. Look for a chance to build up. Listen to each other. Communication is an art, and communication takes time, and communication is something that can be improved over time. I'm going to let you go because you have been awesome, and this meeting was supposed to go till 9:30, but because you were so awesome, I'm letting you go at 9:19. Right now, you have whatever your little book tells you you have. So look at your little book, and it says right here, cafe is open, gift shop is open, and you can take up to $50 worth of merchandise free from the gift shop. Okay, so just go over there. Just grab the stuff and walk out. And when the woman goes, whoa, 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 say, no, it said it. All right, you know I'm kidding, right? Don't go take that money. But yes, the cafe is open and the gift shop is open. Every time when I'm done speaking, I'm going to step off the platform and I'm available if you have questions or if you want to talk to me. Okay, grab the hand of your spouse and I want to pray for you. Lord Jesus, I'm so thankful for this couple, so thankful that you brought them here this weekend. Lord, I pray that you would help them to deepen their communication. I pray, God, that they would just be open in sharing with one another, that they would seek to understand, take time for one another, that they would be good listeners, and that, God, this would be an awesome weekend for them to spend together. So, Lord, I bless them now. And I pray this in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.